So today we're going to start talking about standard form of a quadratic function. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is define standard form. So standard form is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So the first example says that we want to write y equals 2 times the quantity of x plus 2 squared minus 1 in standard form. Well, right now this equation is in vertex form, which is what we looked at last week. So we want to put it in standard form, which is ax squared plus bx plus c. So let's just start off by writing down our equation. It's a plus 2 squared minus 1. And the first thing we're going to do to simplify this is start with this set of parentheses. So the quantity of x plus 2 squared. So that means that we have x plus 2 times x plus 2. So we're going to have to multiply that, which we're just going to use FOIL. So we're going to say x times x is x squared. X times 2 is plus 2x. Then we're going to come back and distribute the 2 to each. 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times 2 is 4. Then we can combine these middle terms. 2x plus 2x is 4x. We'll bring everything else down. But if we go back and look, we had this 2 out in front. So now we're going to have to distribute that 2 to everything that we have. This was a plus 4x here. Okay, so 2 times x squared is 2x squared. 2 times 4x is positive 8x. 2 times 4 is positive 8. And then I'm going to bring down this minus 1 on the end. And then we're just going to combine. So we'll just have 2x squared. We'll have positive 8x. And then we can combine 8 minus 1, which is positive 7. Bring down this y equals in front, and this is our equation in standard form. So now we're going to look at finding our vertex and our y-intercept when our equation's in standard form, both things that we have talked about before. So once again, standard form is this y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So the first thing we're going to find is our vertex. And remember, when we talked about our vertex in vertex form, we used the variables h and k. But this equation is not in vertex form. So we're going to have to use this formula, h equals negative b divided by 2a. That's going to give us our first number for our vertex. Then once we find that h, we're going to substitute that h back into our equation to find our k. Okay, and then we're also going to find our y-intercept. So our y-intercept is always going to look like this, 0, and then our c, which is our constant value. Notice it says it's always going to end up being the constant in the equation. And that's going to be true because if you had this form ax squared plus bx plus c, if all these x's ended up being 0, notice the only thing that's left is this number at the end, which is c. So now we're going to use those formulas to find our vertex and our y-intercept. So example 2 says find the vertex and the y-intercept of y equals negative 2x squared plus 12x plus 4. So the first thing I'm going to do is come over here and figure out what my a, my b, and my c is from the equation. Well, a is just going to be the number in front of your x squared, so that's negative 2. B is going to be the number in front of your x, which is 12. And then c is going to be your constant at the end, your plain number, which is 4. So the first thing I want to do is find my vertex. So my vertex is going to be h and then k. So for h, our formula was negative b over 2a. So that means in this particular equation, I'm going to have negative, and our b value is 12, divided by 2 times our a value, which is negative 2. So on top, that makes that negative 12. The bottom, 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Negative 12 divided by negative 4 is positive 3. Now, to find this k value, I'm going to take my equation, which is negative 2x squared plus 12x plus 4, and I'm going to fill in negative 2, but instead of putting x, I'm putting my h value, which is 3. Okay, plus 12. Once again, instead of putting x, I'm putting my h value, which was 3, plus 4. Now I'm just going to work this out. So 3 squared is going to give me 9. So negative 2 times 9. Bring everything else down. And then negative 2 times 9 is negative 18. 12 times 3 is positive 36. Bring down my plus 4. Left to right, negative 18 plus 36 is positive 18 plus 4. 18 plus 4 is 22. So that means my vertex, h comes first, which was 3, and then our k, which is 22. So that's my vertex. But it also asks for us to find the y-intercept. So for your y-intercept, you're going to go back to that equation again, negative 2x squared plus 12x plus 4. Well, in your y-intercept, your x value is always going to be 0. So if I plug in 0 for all these x's, notice what happens. This whole value becomes 0. This whole value becomes 0. And the only thing left is that constant. So your y-intercept is going to be 0, comma, positive 4. Okay, example 3 says state the maximum or the minimum of y equals 3x squared minus 6x plus 5. Well, if they want you to find either the maximum or the minimum, that means that they're trying to get you to find your vertex. Because your vertex is either your maximum value or your minimum value. So let's state our a, b, and c first. So a is the number in front of x squared, which is 3. B is the number in front of your plane x, which in this case is negative 6. And C is your constant, whatever you're adding at the end, which is positive 5. So remember in your vertex, this is h and then k. So we're going to find h first. That formula is negative b over 2a. So negative, and then our b value was negative 6 over 2 times a, our a value is 3. So in the numerator, a negative times a negative 6 makes that positive 6. The denominator, 2 times 3 is positive 6 as well. 6 divided by 6 is 1. Now we're going to find this k value. So we're going to start with our equation. So 3x squared minus 6x plus 5. But instead of putting x, we're going to put this h value, which is positive 1 squared, minus 6 times, same thing. Instead of putting x, we're going to put this h value, which is positive 1, and then plus 5. So 1 squared is still positive 1. Bring everything else down here. And then left to right, 3 times 1 is 3. Negative 6 times 1 is negative 6. Bring down that plus 5. Left to right again, 3 minus 6 is negative 3. And then negative 3 plus 5 is positive 2. So that means that our vertex is going to be h, which is positive 1, and k, which is positive 2. But the question is state the max or the min. So our vertex is 1, 2. But to figure out if it's a maximum or a minimum, look at this number in front of x squared. So if that's a positive value, that means that your graph would open up, which means your vertex here is at the bottom of your parabola. So this vertex is a minimum.